Welcome back to Cinematic Disasters. It was only a matter of time before I got to another Disney live-action remake. As some of you may recall, my first ever Cinematic Disasters review was for the live-action Lion King from 2019. And I also called it the worst film of that year, and I still stand by that. But the Disney remakes have been sucking since 1996's 101 Dalmatians. But they've only recently gotten a kick since 2010's Alice in Wonderland, which was also terrible and we'll get to another day. But one of Disney's earliest hits was 2014's Maleficent. This movie basically went the Wicked route, trying to make us feel sympathy for a very popular villain. And I'll get into why Wicked worked and this didn't in a minute, but I'm gonna turn to the movie first, and then we'll get to Wicked, a show I actually haven't seen all of, but I've seen enough of it to compare the two. So, Maleficent, who stars Angelina Jolie as the title character, who's actually a pretty good choice for Maleficent. She looks like her, she sounds like her, it's pretty good casting, but as you'll quickly see, the writing doesn't do much to back up her performance. It starts off with a young Maleficent, who's basically, she's the kindest of all fairies and there's like two separate kingdoms. There's like the human kingdom, and there's the fairy kingdom. And she finds this guy this thief who's stealing from the fairy kingdom. What he's stealing, I have no idea, but I think he was like stealing some kind of like magical rock or something. I don't remember. And I literally just refreshed myself when watching this. I have no idea what he was stealing. And this kid's name is Stephen. And if that name sounds familiar, you'll see why in a few minutes. So they end up developing this kind of bond, friendship, romance, all that jazz. And apparently Stephen spends the next 20 so years taking douchebag lessons. And he's basically working for the now king of the human kingdom, and he brings them to, or I guess he directs them to the fairy kingdom. And they launch an attack because... and I will give credit, the action sequence that takes place between the fairy kingdom and the human kingdom, it's a pretty badass fight. And nothing in the film will top this fight, I assure you. So, and then the king's men all get their asses handed to them, and they run like cowards. And eventually, well, I guess not eventually, like a few minutes later, the king is dying, and he wants someone to find, whoever kills Maleficent will be crowned king. Because that's a great way to run your government. Although, again, given our current American government, I can kind of buy this. So, Stefan goes to kill Maleficent, but much like Snow White, the hunter in Snow White, he finds that he can't do it and simply cuts off her wings while she's sleeping, and how he did that without her noticing, I will never know. And he brings the wings back to the king, so that makes him the new king now, because I guess bringing the wings back is proof of death. So then he gets himself a queen, and then she gives birth to a daughter named Aurora. Although before this, Maleficent basically becomes evil, and she turns a crow into a dude named Theovam. I think I said that right. One question. Why? Why did they change the crow? Because the crow was in the original, but it wasn't a dude. Well, she didn't change him into a dude. And this will get worse at the end of the movie, but... So, her and Theovam, I swear I'm saying that right, she goes, and of course, while the fairies are giving the gifts to the child, she crashes the place, and... Oh, by the way, we don't find out what the third gift is in this version. And I'll get to that in a second. Maleficent comes in and curses the child, but it's a bit different here. In the original, it was very simple. On her 16th birthday, she will prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die. Simple as that. So why not complicate the fuck out of this? Instead of death, she says she'll fall into a sleep-like death. Why change that? That adds nothing to it at all. And not only that, the king begs her to lift the curse a bit, well, to not do this, basically. So she creates an out for it, which True Love's kiss will wake her from the sleep. Now, there's multiple problems with this. One, why have such a limp curse that there are like 15 different loopholes that you can get out of it? And two, why is Maleficent the one creating these loopholes? In the original, the third gift, I don't remember, did they even say what the third gift was supposed to be in the original? I don't think they did. But either way, it doesn't matter, because that gift ends up being the way out of the curse, the way to lift the curse. Here, the third gift is never acknowledged, and not only that, I'll turn to the fairies in a minute, but Maleficent is the one to give the way to lift the curse. Why would she do that? I know she was like basically taunting the king when he was begging her to not curse his daughter, but why would you give him an out if you're trying to get revenge on him for being such an abstract dick? I don't get it. And then Maleficent goes back to her kingdom and I guess makes the place evil, even though all it did was darken the lighting. That's literally it. There was no other change to the place other than dark lighting. Now, back to the fairies. I'm going to turn to them for a second. These are possibly the worst characters in any Disney live-action remake. They are the characters that have probably been butchered the worst. These characters, not only do they... Because in this version, it's the king's idea to have the fairies raise Maleficent for 16 years. In the original, this isn't in the original, but if it was in the original, I could buy this a bit more, because the fairies at least seemed competent. In this version, not only do they seemingly have no understanding about Maleficent's magic and how it works or how to stop it, but they act like bumbling dumbasses the entire time. They do nothing but fuck around and argue and almost get the child killed on multiple occasions, and even allowing Maleficent to spot them before they even move into the damn cottage. They're there for 20 seconds before Maleficent finds them. Yeah, that way to kill all the tension there. There would have been some great tension there if it was Maleficent trying to find them and not being able to, but no, fuck that. We'll just have her find them, and basically the entire time it's Maleficent just pulling pranks on these three morons and trying to scare the baby with faces. Yeah, she does more of the raising of Aurora than the fairies do. Ugh. And not only that, but she ends up saving the kid from almost dying a few times. Like one point where I think she's chasing a butterfly or something. It's something stupid. And then she has the ground move or tree move to keep her from falling off a cliff while the three fairies are 100 yards away are fighting again. Ugh. I'm not even halfway through the film yet, and I'm already pissed off. So, eventually, Aurora grows into Ellie Fanning, who, again, is a pretty good Aurora, actually. And she finds Maleficent, who, I guess, is her real parent. You see how stupid that sounds pretty stupid, right? Yeah, that's the movie. So, she, of course, thinks she's her fairy godmother, because this is a fairy tale, and of course. And what do? There's no, meaningful talks or anything. It's just them hanging out like any two girls you'd see in, I don't know, any other movie. Any real-world movie. Any real-world scenario, actually. They just fuck around for a while. And eventually, Aurora meets Prince Philip, played by Brenton Thwaites of all people. He's actually, and I want to bring up something here. Thwaites is actually pretty good as Philip, and not only that, he's actually given more dialogue here than Philip had in the original. And I think Thwaites was pretty good Philip here. So I have one question. Why was he recast for the sequel? Because I noticed this back when I first saw Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, back when it hit Disney Plus last year, or a couple years ago. I noticed that he was, I noticed Philip looked different. And it took me a while to realize that he had been recast for some reason. And I don't know why. Brendan Thwaites was actually very good as Philip in this movie, so why was he recast? Did he have conflicts with Titans? And I think he made the wrong choice choosing Titans. Titans is awful. It's like Maleficent sucked too, but Titans is awful. So he's a pretty good Robin though, but his character's awful, and that entire show is awful. And yes, I'm probably gonna review season 3, but back to Maleficent. So they basically have one conversation together again, but again, at least it's more dialogue than the original. And Maleficent, oh, I forgot to mention something before I get into this. At some point, Maleficent tries to lift the curse herself. Because why not? And she finds out she can't. So even she doesn't know how her own magic works. Why can't she lift the curse on her own? I don't know. It's never explained. And Theovam, such a stupid name, suggests that maybe Philip could be the one to break the curse. And Maleficent says, I cursed her that way because there is no such thing. Yeah, that's definitely not going to be a contradiction there. But, and eventually, Aurora goes back to the bubbling dillweeds of fairies, and she said she's leaving, or she's going somewhere. I think she was gonna leave, go with Maleficent or something. I don't know. But then the fairies accidentally let slip that her father is alive and who he is, and which leads her to run away and find the castle. And for some reason, the king's voice is just laughable. I don't know why. It's like an over-the-top Scotch. It's like Scrooge McDuck gargling cactus water. I don't know what it is, and especially later when he gets mad. But I'll get into that in a bit. Okay, it's raining now. So Maleficent. So she ends up pricking her finger, of course, because she came back a day early on the eve of her 16th. And she, of course, pricks her finger on the spinning wheel. And then we get to the real Scrooge McDuck gargling cactus water. I was going to make a joke about David Tennant also gargling cactus water, or something similar to that, but I realized David Tennant plays the reboot of Scrooge McDuck, so that would have been just the same joke twice, so whatever. So that gives you an idea how silly his voice sounds at the end here. And then Maleficent brings Philip to the castle to lift the curse, but of course it doesn't work. So they pull the Frozen bullshit of it's the love for a family member, even though family, fuck's sake, instead of romantic love, and of course that's what lifts the curse. And then we get to possibly one of the worst climaxes in Disney history. So they end up the king, who is the villain of this film, and also I want to bring up is that the king is kind of a rapist in this movie. I don't want to go too far into this because this is a Disney review. I don't want to get too far into it. I might make a video on its own with a warning in front of it. But if any of you seen, there was a video on whatculture.com. There was a video of 10 insulting changes to remakes, or insultingly bad changes in remakes. And there was something like that, and I don't want to get into it here. I really don't. So you can go and watch that video if you want an in-depth analysis, or if you want me to do one, let me know. But I'm not going to get into it here, especially since I have more stuff to talk about. And so they end up capturing Maleficent. Well, not really capture. They throw a giant net on her. So she turns Theovam into a dragon. Not nearly as cool as the original. So, and I know what you're thinking. She turned into a dragon in the original. Yes, she turned into a dragon in the original. She even said when she first made the into a guy, I need you to be my wings. Why don't you make new wings for yourself, like you did the fucking other movie? So she turns him into a dragon, and then Aurora, like, breaks free the wings of Maleficent, which fly back to her and magically reattach themselves. Because fine. And then she throws Stefan out a window. No acknowledging the past they had, no acknowledging the all the time they spent together, the romance they had. None of it acknowledged that she just throws his ass out a window. Any opportunity of character they had here was successfully missed. So the movie quickly wraps up with Aurora being now the queen of both kingdoms, the human one and the fairy one, and the final monologue by, I guess, an older Sleeping Beauty, saying that the kingdoms were saved by someone who is not hero or villain. Fuck you. So as you can tell, that was Maleficent. This was a chore to sit through. I know this was early when Disney was still experimenting with something new like Cruella, which I actually really liked. Go check out my review of that. Was a very good film. Maleficent tried to do the same thing, but this is not the same. Cruella wasn't a diabolical killer. She wasn't like this huge villain that would murder people. Maleficent was this huge, powerful being that just enjoyed being evil. You can't do anything sympathetic with this character, but if you want to, you could, but you can't try to make her a misunderstood hero. And here's where I'm going to get into the difference between this and Wicked. The reason it worked in Wicked is because the Wicked Witch of the West, yes, the West, because the Wicked Witch of the West in The Wizard of Oz is nothing but a simpleton with a low vocabulary and used brute force to get what she wants. That's all the depth she had. So when you see her as the complete reverse, it's a lot more compelling. Here, she's still kind of the same. She's still the charming, charismatic character that we saw in the original. She's not completely different. It's not like she was a good person but still very serious and then turned into a villain and turned into the cheerful, meticulous character we saw in the original. She doesn't change. She just becomes more of just like Stefan, she just becomes a douche for no reason. And I thought all the casting was fine, but all of them were squandered with bad dialogue and terrible decisions, especially with the three fairies, who weren't even called Flora, Fauna, and shit, what was the third one? Mayweather, something like that. Here they're called, I don't know, Fiddle, Fuckwad, and Dillweed. I don't know. I don't give a shit what they were called. That's what I'm gonna call them. They were like Nutgrass, Tumbleweed. I don't fucking know. I can't even remember the names of the fairies because I was blocking out their annoyingness so much. So, if you guys know what their names are, please don't tell me. I don't care. But and this movie ended up being a big hit, so of course they ended up making a sequel in 2019, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, which was better. It still sucked, but it sucked less. It had more of a plot this time. I thought the villain actually had more screen time in Michelle Pfeiffer's, even if she was kind of a terrible villain again. And it actually gave Prince Philip stuff to do, even if I think the actor was an odd choice, but I thought the performances were all fine in it, and the action was cool. I liked the climax of that film. The only thing I liked in this film were the acting was good, and the fight scene 15 minutes into the film was good. Honestly, I think they should have flipped the fight scenes. I think the one that happened 15 minutes in the film, should have been the climax. It was a badass fight. But that's all the positive things I have to say about Maleficent. It's bogged down by a lot of really bad decisions and bad changes from the original terrible dialogue and just stupid characters, and a really horrible mistreatment of the fairies, who I actually really like. They were probably some of my favorite characters in the original behind Maleficent, but here they're just bumbling idiots and they're annoying as fuck. And before anybody says it, yes, I know one of them is Dolores Umbridge from Harry Potter. I already know that. Don't even bother. So, that's all I've got to say for Maleficent. Next time on Cinematic Disasters, we're going to be moving away from Disney and going to another animated studio. DreamWorks. Thank you all so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button for more reviews, hit that like button down below, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.